give gratitude. We have Michelle Kate and Bill Kaplan and Shani, as well as Sharon Oren here from 4 incredible Jewish community farming organizations. How are you guys doing today? Welcome.
Doing great. Thanks for having us.
Awesome.
So wonderful. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Yes, thank you for having us.
Thank you so much for hosting us.
100%. Yeah, it's a true joy. And also, I really want to thank everyone who is here in attendance, coming and creating some time to learn a little bit more about these individuals and potentially ourselves as well. So you guys could be spending your time in so many different areas. And it's just an honor that you're here with us today. So we are going to have a really enjoyable conversation today. We have this beautiful panel, and they're going to impart some inspiration and some knowledge of the Jewish agrarian cultures and traditions. So there will be some fun in that. And also the intention with these talks and with celebrating the culture in agriculture is getting to know ourselves a bit more. So as we have a chance to hear from them, you guys will have a chance to ask them some questions directly, and then we'll kind of roll into this community roundtable, really circular dialogue and conversation to just hear a bit more around what came up for you guys and what was inspiring, or what you're maybe leaving with some curiosity on. Gorgeous. Does that sound good? Everyone stoked on that? Sweet. Love it. Cool. So today I'd love to quickly share a bit about each of these organizations. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share so y'all can see on the Farmers Footprint website. We created a Jewish Agricultural Week. So can you guys see this okay? Okay, gorgeous. Yeah, so this was the intention, was to celebrate Jewish agriculture with a capital C. And it really is an invitation to get closer and have a deeper understanding of a Jewish peoples, of a peoples, and the culture, and how that intersects with the meaning and the history and the lineage, and how do we use our senses to get exploratory in that. So it's a true honor to have each of these 4 organizations here. They are so varied and differing in their experiences and the way that they work in the world. And I just want to give you guys, if you haven't had a chance to be following along on social media all week and see their beauty through videos and the written word, just to get a little bit closer to them today. And they'll have a chance also to speak more deeply to each of their work as well. So ShemeshFarms is a social enterprise. Michelle Kate, who is the director of ShemeshFarms, is going to take us a little bit deeper into their work. And then we have Coastal Roots Farm based in Encinitas, California, which is doing incredible work as well in the community farming and education perspectives. And Sharon Oren, who is the education manager of camp and community programs at Coastal Roots, is going to tell us a bit more about her work there and the incredible equity-based farming that they are creating in Southern California. And then we have Jewish Farmer Network. So we have here with us today the incredible Shani Mink, who is the co-founder of the Jewish Farmer Network. And they're doing incredible work to mobilize and connect Jewish agrarians within this movement. So very excited to have that piece as a part of it as well. And then Bill Kaplan is here representing Edible Judaism. Bill is the executive director of Shalom Institute, which is connected to ShemeshFarms. Shemesh is a program of Shalom Institute, and Rabbi Bill is the executive director of Shalom Institute. So he has this incredible program that is a fun, interactive way to help everyone explore Jewish text and cultural and traditions while noshing. I love that word, just eating and having fun with it. So yeah, that is part of where we're going today, is learning a bit more about all these things and these incredible people who are bringing them into the world. And to share a bit more of how this week came about, I've had the chance to visit on land Michelle and Sharon actually at their farms. And I've had a chance to speak with Shani and as well as Bill. And it's just, I want to say part of the intention of today is really to be in that space of giving and receiving. So I think we're really excited to live up to our collective promise during this week of Jewish Agricultural Week to invite you and ourselves to see and feel and taste the rituals and dimensions and meaning and history of a lineage of the Jewish people. So I think our hopes, at least mine, are to learn and to celebrate, really celebrate this gathering and discussion around Jewish agriculture and curiously connect by exploring this topic together. So it's been a true gift for me to have friends who are Jewish, who have given me the gift of coming a little bit closer to their traditions. And it's been a joy to get to know each of you guys a little bit more. So I thought we could spend some time kind of setting the stage, like getting a sense of, before we dive into y'all's work in a deep sense, I'd love to ask you guys the question of, what is the meaning to you of being a Jewish person in relationship to land today? And as a follow-up question to that, how does this relate to the history of Jewish peoples as land-based peoples? So I know we kind of discussed going about like 2 minutes for each question of you guys speaking, but this one is so rich. So go ahead and take your time. We're really just setting up the stage on this one. And yeah, maybe I will ask Bill to begin.
Right. Thank you. Thank you, Tori. And welcome everybody. I'm really happy to be here. So I think, going with the question, it is like part and parcel, it's integral. I look at Judaism is, and the history is that we're the Jews are people of the book, but also people of the land. And for me, when I was younger, I was not as connected to my Judaism. I'm sort of like a bar mitzvah dropout, but I was very connected to nature, the environment, and to the land. And it was only like college and a little bit afterwards, and spending time in Israel too, that I really found that connection. I found the spirituality that came through, and the learning that came through, that I could combine the two things. I really saw in Jewish tradition, the Jewish ecological values, how the land is so much part of Torah and tradition. And later on for me, but getting into Jewish texts and Jewish learning, sometimes I really struggled with it. And especially when I was in rabbinical school, and I did rabbinical school later in life. I did it about 10 years ago. And I really found, for me, as I started studying the nature imagery and the agricultural laws, that it just like opened up a whole world for me. It was almost magical, where it just like all of a sudden that aha moment, and I saw the connections even deeper. And I really saw that, and I'll share later on a little bit more, I saw the connections of how the land, the flora, could be used, as a educational model to teach others, and for other educators to teach others. And so for me, it really is so much part of who I am in terms of my Judaism as a rabbi, how I teach and how I view the world and my lens of the world. So I'll leave it at that. I'll let others speak. I'll share more later.
Thank you, Bill. So beautiful. It's amazing that it's in your fabric and your core like that. Shani, how about yourself? What is the meaning to you of being a Jewish person in relationship to land today? And how does that relate to the history of Jewish peoples as land-based peoples?
I feel like our organization is like answering these questions every day. It's wrestling with these questions every day of like, for each individual Jewish farmer in our network, like, what does it mean for you to be a Jewish person in relationship to land today? And that can look so different for so many people. I can say, like, I've been working on farms since I was about 18. And something that's really important for me is that, like, there are so many aspects of Judaism that didn't come alive for me until I started working on farms. Like, I don't think that I felt the rest of Shabbat truly in my body until I had fully exhausted my body throughout the week working on a farm. So there's this like embodied and dynamic experience of Judaism that doesn't actually like come alive. I don't want to minimize other people's experience, but for me, it didn't come alive until I started working on farms. And So a lot of like what it means for me to be a Jewish person in relationship to land today is this continuation of the legacy of the Jewish people as a people of the land. So this is something that Bill said. I mean, I often say that before we were the people of the book, we were the people of the land, right? So like before we kind of codified everything in text, we were living our relationship to the divine through our relationship to land, through sacrifice, through offerings of our best harvest, through harvest festivals that anchored our year. And so we're like, in the year, 2022, or on our calendar, 5782, me having a relationship with the land is me continuing that legacy of my ancestors being rooted in the land. So that's really important for me, but something else that is alive for me in this moment and something that motivates our work is the fact that I didn't grow up with any Jewish farming role models, like modern Jewish farming role models. I didn't know anybody who was a farmer and was Jewish. And so this story that was presented to me of what it looks like to be Jewish in 5782, 2022 was not of someone who's in relationship to the land. And so what I'm doing right now by being a Jewish farmer, by being a Jew in relationship to land, is I am being a better future ancestor. I am being a role model for the next generations to say, this is a way that it can look like to be Jewish. This is a way to enact your Judaism. And it's not invalid, and it's not oxymoronic to be a Jew in relationship to land. It's actually this I'm biased, but like the most vibrant way to enact your Jewish identity. And then I'm just going to say one more thing. I don't know how long I've been talking. Another important thing for me in being a Jewish person in relationship to land is taking all of these core Jewish agricultural tenets, which, as someone who grew up in an Orthodox community, they were presented to me mostly as metaphor, right? I was actually talking with a friend earlier today about how I grew up on the Jewish harvest festival of Sukkot. I grew up in a sukkah that had plastic grapes hanging from the ceiling of the sukkah, right? And like now as a Jewish farmer, and I'm realizing, okay, this is like really a harvest festival. My sukkah is decorated with things that I grew. Okay, so taking these things and taking them from this category of like metaphor and bringing it to life in the fields where I am. I guess this piece about the history of the Jewish peoples, and I just going back to like continuing the legacy that like, it's not just this piece that is historic. It's not just this piece that's biblical. Like it's happening right now. And there are thousands of Jewish people in the world who are cultivating holy relationships with the land, whether they like, think about it as like a Jewish relationship with land or not. It's like this like deep tikkun, this like deep healing to be a Jewish person in relationship with land, especially because of the ways that we have been persecuted, the ways that we have been sent out from lands, the ways that so many of us and our ancestors were not allowed to own land. So we are here in this work. I think everybody in this room, we're doing like a deep tikkun, a deep healing. In the history of the Jewish people.
Beautifully said. There's small words to come to that bigness. Thank you. Sharon.
All right, well, thank you, Shani. That is so beautiful. So I'll start with just a little bit of the history and how I see us here as Jewish people and me as a Jewish person connected to the land. For me, it's a lot about building community. When I think about the history of the Jewish people and how they were tied to the land, it was all surrounded by community, and they needed the support of one another to be able to do the work that they were doing, this holy work of being in relationship to the land, and how that taught them to slow down, to be patient, to give as much as, maybe even more than you take. And that really, embodied this community that I use those themes and that philosophy now as a Jewish person working with the land and trying to build community here in Encinitas. And so my relationship to the land as a Jewish person is started back when I was in high school. Actually, I went to Israel to the Alexander Moss High School in Israel program, and we got to go to the places that in the Torah mentioned, like these things are happening. And we went to those places and it was like, oh my God, this is real. Like, here is the place. It's not just written in a textbook. We could feel it, we could see it. And that really sparked a lot of my interest in being connected to the land. And after teaching elementary school, Judaic studies, and again, just trying to make it alive for children and K through third, coming out here to work on a farm, I wanted to make sure that the text and the stories are going to come alive to the children here on the farm. And so, I oversee the camp here, and I make sure that whatever is happening when we're teaching kids different values of Achnasat Ochim, and that, what does that mean? Like to welcome guests. Well, let's do that. Let's actually see what that means. And, let's make sure people are being connected to each other, that we're forming this kehillah, this community. And let's make sure that everybody coming to our spaces feel connected to the space that they're at. And then one way just one example that I show that to children and adults alike is, let's say Havdalah. Like there is this tradition that we use spices, and a lot of people go for, clove or for cinnamon. It's so easy. Well, we have a whole farm filled with so many spices, right? Why go for those items that you might have to go to the store to find? Let's use what we see here on the farm. Let's be connected to the land through our Jewish rituals, our Jewish traditions, and make all of that relationship to each other and to the land come alive.
So beautiful. The gift of community, and in community with each other and the more than human world, the land, everything that lives upon it. Thank you, Sharon. Michelle, please take it away.
So my personal relationship, being a Jewish person and connecting to the land, really began as a child for me. I grew up in a very traditional Jewish home, although we were not Orthodox. My father is Ashkenazi and my mother is Sephardic. And really, I would say the beginning of connecting to land really has to do with seasons. And we celebrated all of the Jewish holidays. And when I think of holidays and Jewish holidays, I think of seasons. Fall brings us Rosh Hashanah. Spring brings us Pesach. And the seasons are all connected in some form or another to the land. And it's interestingly enough that now at ShemeshFarms, my job with the community of employing young adults with diverse abilities and special needs is to create seasonings. And we make spices and blends. And now, and something else that I think we, in the Torah, we're encouraged to be people of action. And we are very, very inclusive here at ShemeshFarms and Shalom Institute. And it goes beyond including, but belonging. And I feel that the land really does not reject us. It always is a place where people can feel that they belong. And so I know for watching and seeing firsthand young adults with diverse abilities and special needs, learning how to farm, connecting it with the holidays and the seasons, and connecting it with the herbs that we are growing and harvesting in relation to the seasons, and then creating seasonings, all relates to the land and inclusion. And that's that.
So beautiful. Guys, the quotables in this is just unbelievable. Like the voices coming through. This is amazing. And I just want to honor that piece. Thank you guys for sharing on a personal level. I think it's inextricably linked that we bring ourselves wherever we go, to the work, and allowing that feedback loop to change us as we're changing the places around us and touching them. So thank you for setting the stage in that way. And I'd love to know more about the places that have shaped and changed you, and where you guys are focusing your attention in this beautiful work in present day. So if y'all could speak, we'll start with Shani. Please tell all of us more about your team's inspiring impact in the agricultural realm as Jewish community farming leaders and Jewish leaders. And I think maybe to help us get there, maybe you could describe your organization's theory of change, and perhaps which programs are central to helping you bring that vision to life. So Shani, I'll pass it your way.
Thanks, Tori. So the way I like to describe what we do is actually by describing what we don't do. So we are not a network of Jewish community farms. We are a network of individual Jewish farmers. So it doesn't matter where you're farming and in what context. If you yourself are a Jewish person and you have an active relationship with the land through gardening, farming, homesteading, herbalism, whatever it is, you're some sort of food systems professional, you are part of our community. And that includes people like Rabbi Bill Kaplan and Sharon and Michelle. All of these people are part of our community of Jewish farmers. And it's amazing to have the cross-pollination of those folks. So our organization works to empower modern Jewish farmers with the resources and the community to build meaningful cultural identity at the intersection of vocation and tradition. So something that I have come up against, and a lot of the farmers in our network have come up against, is this idea of, oh, Jewish farmer, isn't that an oxymoron? That's something that people have said to my face several times. And I've actually heard that from several other people, that they've also heard that. And so there is this experience of, okay, so the picture, the image, especially as a young Jewish American, that we are given of what it means to be a Jewish person in society and a successful Jewish person in the society, is a picture of someone who is a doctor or a lawyer or a this or a that, or the Woody Allen type, right? People have said oh, Jews don't do physical labor. That's a thing that we've heard. And so with that, with those words and those ideas, kind of coming down on my generation of young farmers, what we internalize is, oh, I can't be a Jewish farmer. I can't be Jewish and a farmer. So I guess this whole Jewish thing isn't connected to this whole earth connection farmer thing. These two pieces of identity, they're not welcome in the same room at the same time. That's how it's kind of internalized by a lot of folks in our community. And it also manifests in the fact that often in Jewish spaces, they're the only farmer in the room, and in farming spaces, they're the only Jew in the room. And so what we do with our organization is we help people find peers. Oh, people who look like me, or people who have the same cultural identity as me do work like this. I have a community. Wow. And then also giving folks the resources to understand, actually, being a Jewish farmer is not an oxymoron, as you may have been told, but actually being a farmer is the most quote unquote Jewish job that you can do, right? This is something that our ancestors have been doing forever, throughout all of Jewish history. And here are the practices and the theories and the ethics around agriculture that are innately ours. And another core piece of this is keeping kind of our farmers from actually, we don't need to appropriate other people's cultures and other people's land ethics, right? We have our own. And how beautiful is that for us to enact the ethics of our ancestors through our relationship with the land today? It comes alive for us, and it's this deeper thing. It's amazing to learn from other cultures, but it's this whole other level of depth and ancestral healing and spiritual connection that comes through making alive the ethics of our foremothers and forefathers and forepeople. And so that's really important. And then that's like kind of like the general like idea of what we do. And the way that we do that is through some core programs. So we have a annual conference that continues to grow every year. So the first year was our first ever program in February of 2020, right before the world shut down. We thought maybe we would get 100 people, and we ended up selling out our conference with 165 Jewish farmers from like 25 states and 3 countries. Unbelievable. Our last 2 virtual conferences, we had over 300 people tune in to our virtual spaces to learn together, to learn about Jewish beekeeping, right? To learn about Jewish herbal traditions, to learn about Jewish land justice, Jewish food justice. How do we make sure that the widow and the stranger and the orphan and the poor in our community are taken care of and are fed? So we're offering people these ancestral agricultural technologies in order for them to like bring them alive, and in order for them to deepen their connection to their own ancestry and their own traditions. So we have conference, we have virtual spaces for people to connect, and we do all sorts of online classes, including a series of a study group called the Jews and Land. And Jews and Land is this like 4-part study group where we like talk about like the Jewish relationship to land through history, like where were we and what were we doing? We also offer some like one-off classes, and we have affinity spaces that are also super, super vibrant. So the intersection of Jewish and farmer itself is like an affinity space. And then within that, we have really vibrant groups for queer Jewish farmers, for self-identified disabled Jewish farmers, and also for Jewish farmers of color. So these are spaces that are like even safer like niches for people to like explore these like intersecting parts of our identity and how they can inform each other and inform our relationship with land and how we interact with land. Yeah.
Shani, I'm gonna jump in. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Weave in the rest as we go. And I'm going to drop the link right now to the landing page if y'all want to go deeper on what Sharon's about to share, what Shani just shared, what Bill and Michelle will tee up to. You guys can use that as a launch pad. Sharon, please take it away. And Shani, thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you. So here at Coastal Roost Farm, we're really interested in we have 4 impact initiatives, really interested in community, like I said before. And so the farm was founded back in 2014 as a response to understanding that here in North County, San Diego, when you come here, especially to Encinitas, it seems like it's a neighborhood, a town, a city that is that might have some resources and resources available to people to shop organically, to shop locally, when in fact so many people don't have those resources. And so part of what we do is food justice and making sure that those around us in North County, San Diego, are able to have access to the food that we're growing, because we know that so many communities around us, the gap in terms of income is really large, and so many communities around us just don't have that access. And so they make sure that we're distributing offsite to many different organizations. So over 70% of everything that we grow, we donate offsite to just different organizations. We go to military bases. We provide food for the Holocaust survivors. We go to a couple of indigenous tribes. We are in relationship with Seacrest, which is a home for the aging, and with churches, a couple different churches, a lot through the Jewish family services that are connecting us with these organizations. And we're just going out there and we're donating all of 70% of all that we're growing to these communities. And then the other part that is staying on site, we have a pay what you can farm stand. And those who do have access to come to the farm, they are able to walk away with up to $30 in groceries for free. They don't have to show any proof of income. They are, this very dignified system with this iPad that gets turned around, and they're giving themselves the discount that they need so that nobody else in line knows how much they've paid. And we have a lot of people in our neighborhood that are able to pay overprice, and because they know the work that we're doing, and so they're giving us more. It's really this suggested donation model. And so that's a big part of what we do, really just making sure people have access and a diverse crop that is available to them. We grow over 60 varieties of crops here throughout the year. And so they're not just getting lettuce. Even though we are very, very grateful to be in San Diego, where the weather does allow us to grow many different types of vegetables and fruit throughout the year, even in the winter months. And so people, our customers are able to shop and get about 10 or 12 different varieties of crops each time they come. The other part that the other reason the farm was founded was this response to Jewish connection or Jewish or non-Jewish connection to institutions and the JCCF Federation here in San Diego. And yet people and Jews, interfaith families, they still wanted to have a connection to Judaism, just not in this institution, not in a place where there was this different language they couldn't connect to, there were prayers they couldn't connect to. They might have felt like Judaism was kind of shoved down their throat. And so we're creating a space where people can come and really have land-based Judaism as part of their life. And so whether it is through Shabbat, we just have people bring picnic blanket and a picnic and a blanket, and we put on some music, a craft, and a tour, and they just love being on the farm on Shabbat. Or the Havdalah that we put on, like I said before. We have different Jewish holidays on the farm, mostly for young families, because they're just not finding it anywhere else. And so they get to have land-based experiences connected to Passover, Purim, Hanukkah, Shavuot, any of those events that we put on. And we also know that here in San Diego, and I think kind of around the world now after the pandemic, folks are very interested in learning how to grow food, understanding why it's so important to grow your own food. And so we offer lots of different workshops that will provide that, just different, from beginning to advanced courses that will teach people how to do this all on their own, because we really believe that the learning that happens on the farm shouldn't stay on the farm. It should be applied back in your houses, in your neighborhoods, in your communities, whether it is growing food for yourself or growing it for others.
Amazing, Sharon. Thank you so much. The work you're doing is just, yes, it is so much yes. Guys, I'm feeling like really awestruck and just in wonder. So excuse my lack of words as you guys are just dropping wisdom. I appreciate you. All right, next we have Michelle. Michelle, please. I'm so excited to hear more about ShemeshFarms work.
Thank you. So ShemeshFarms, we are unique in that we're a social enterprise. We hire young adults with diverse abilities and special needs. Most of who we employ have autism, and we hire them, and together we make incredible spices. We are kosher certified and organic, and we've really created this dynamic work community. To give a little background, ShemeshFarms were an initiative of Shalom Institute, and years ago, Rabbi Bill Kaplan was approached by some parents where their children were around 18 and they were aging out of the school system. And the question was, what's next for them? Who's going to hire them? Maybe they can't go to college. What are they going to do? Sorry, I'm getting a phone call. Okay. Can you guys see me still? Okay. Let me just.
Your video went away.
All right. Hopefully the call will go away, but you can hear me. So Rabbi Bill went on a trip to Israel with these parents and the Jewish Federation. and they visited kibbutzim that were addressing this issue. And he saw firsthand, how, of course, your kids call you, right, during a Zoom panel, but okay, sorry. So he saw that there was entrepreneurship happening right there on kibbutzim. And he thought, wow, we can do this on our land at Shalom Institute. At that time, we had a beautiful farm with citrus trees and things growing. And so I was hired, and it was such a privilege for me to begin this process of building a social enterprise. We hired five farm fellows, young adults with special needs, and we really didn't have a lot of education of what we were going to embark together. And slowly we figured out that we would become a spice company and create salt blends. And it was doing very well. We have an online store, and slowly we started hiring. We went from 5 farm fellows to 60 farm fellows. And then the Woolsey fire happened, and it destroyed our whole farm and property and camp at Shalom Institute. And why I share this story is that quickly we needed to reboot. And we moved to the Malibu Jewish Center and Synagogue. And although it is absolutely beautiful here across the street from the Pacific Ocean, virtually it's just concrete. It's all concrete. And how are we going to create our farm space here and continue our enterprise? And what we did is we raised some money, and we bought 6 aeroponic garden towers. And we started growing our food through these garden towers, which is a whole new way of growing food. And it's sustainable, it's accessible to people. And we taught our farm fellows how to grow food out of these garden towers. And while we were doing that simultaneously, we took some of the concrete and we built an urban farm and an urban garden. So now at Shalom, we have at Shemesh, we have these wonderful work modules, from the garden towers to our kitchen, curating our salt blends, to our soil garden, and then our shipping and packaging department, and our online store. And we have this dynamic social enterprise hiring these young adults with special needs. And what's beautiful is, I almost call it like reverse inclusion, is that now people without special needs, they want to come and volunteer and be part of our enterprise. So we have a very vibrant volunteer community as well. So that's kind of our space, and thank you.
So rich, Michelle. Thank you so much for sharing. And Bill, please tell us more about edible Judaism.
I will. I'm actually going to take this opportunity because of what Shani spoke about and Sharon spoke about, Michelle spoke about. I'm going to talk with 2 hats, one quickly. So my Shalom Institute hat, I will say one of my missions on earth is to have places, Jewish institutions, especially like Sharon's, like what Sharon's doing is amazing down there. Coastal Roots Farm, is to have that be pervasive, to be a place both for meaningful engagement and education. So for JCCs and synagogues, so in the Jewish Community Center world, I'm an executive director. That's what Tori was talking about. I just came back from Houston yesterday morning. I was at the JCC Executive Seminar, spent time with one of the JCC execs from Boulder, Colorado. We always talk, and we plot and plan because he has a farm there, and we talk about, and now he's joining the JCC board. I'm on the JCC board, the national board, and we got the JCCs around the country. They got to do this. Synagogues. I'm very proud of my nephew, Micha, who started the Midbar Project in Tucson, that, there's at a synagogue, a Jewish farm. So, and there's so much, and there's other synagogues that are doing that all over the country. But imagine if that as an engagement and education opportunity, like to connect back to could be connecting Jews to the land, to tradition. I mean, not being something like, oh, there's a group of Jewish farmers doing something off there, but it's just, it's a norm. And that's been my mission. I push the Federation world. I push, that's one of, just in that hat I wanted to share, but it connects to my edible, as a rabbi, that's kind of my side gig. I have a main gig, the Institute, but my side gig is, as an educator, is doing the same thing for educators. There are 110 plants mentioned by name in the Torah. There are other plants that aren't mentioned by name. They're not mentioned, but our rabbis, our sages over the last 2,000 years, the Torah is very vague. There is commentary, there's the Talmud. There are different traditions that and different interpretations. You have one rabbi and, there are 10 rabbis and there's 20 opinions. When I was studying, I found that those opinions, like, wow, look at how they're looking at these plants, these that are mentioned, trees and shrubs and whatever, and how those plants can be, I call them props. They're triggers, they're props. So in edible Judaism, I take those props. Sometimes I'm with Jewish educators, early childhood educators, let's say in San Francisco, and I'm laying these props out that are all, some picked from our farm at Shalom Institute, some that are just, they get from other places, and show them how through food, through plants, through the earth, things grown in the earth, that they can learn about their Judaism, how educators can use that to teach and hopefully have gardens, have farms on their places that they could see. The outdoor preschool model is like pervasive everywhere now. And if it's in a Jewish lens and used as for serious education, that's what I work with a lot of, not just early childhood, but other educators to kind of train them on the edible Judaism model. How can you use, your farm, your garden? I've spent time even at established Jewish farms saying, at Jaffe gatherings where I've been teaching, which is Jewish outdoor food farming, environmental education, saying, for the farm managers, look at your farm. I know you're using it to teach about Jewish agricultural laws and all that, but look how much more you can go into. Look at what you're growing. Let me teach you about how to use that as I'd say formidable. For me, as you see, I'm very passionate about it, how you can use that to teach. And what I find in the teaching is that whether with young kids, whether with young adults, whether with older adults, it works, whether depending on regardless of the denomination. I've done it from Reconstructionist, Reform to Orthodox in terms of groups that I've worked with personally. It's universal in a sense. So as an educational tool. So that's what edible Judaism is all about. I'll leave it at that because I know we're running out of time. I could talk more, I could go on forever, but those are my two missions on earth.
Thank you for bringing that, Bill. Yeah, I think we've experienced that at Farmers Footprint in my life. Food is connection, food is education, food is universality, right? It has such deep power to unite us to each other, to ourselves, to things that aren't present here today, but whether they're past or future. So just an admiration of each of yours incredible work. I want to name that we have epically failed upwards at our 2-minute invitation, and it's so much better this way. So thank you guys for bringing the richness of your work fully. It is so needed. For folks who are new to Farmers Footprint, I just want to share that this is a piece of our intention in this work, is to be a platform to elevate voices and the incredible work of others within the agricultural space, and to do it with spirit and with deep reverence. So if you guys missed some of the stories that we shared out and you want another look, feel free to follow along on our Instagram this week. I just dropped in the chat. And I share that not to give us a plug, but I want to now transition to understanding how this community can support you. And really that is a huge intention of what we bring here. And to the audience and to anyone who may watch this replay that we'll be posting at a future time, I just want to name and relieve a little bit that although if you have financial abundance, that's one incredible way that you can be in support of these farms. It is so needed. I know the work you guys are doing in land and in community needs that resilience through financial resources. And also the time that you're spending here today and the attention that you're placing and the intention that you're bringing to potentially share this work further with someone, if it's touched you, is also more than enough. So just wanted to name that. Our intention definitely is to get really clear on how we can support you, and maybe in the spirit of keeping it to like a minute or so for each of y'all, if we could think to maybe like bullet points around how can this community support you and what are your true needs at this time, whether that is financial or otherwise. So I'll invite you guys to speak to that piece from a little bit more of like a boom, 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 like this is kind of what we're needing in this moment. Yeah, and we can go ahead and kick things off with Michelle. Oh, Michelle, you're muted here. I'll ask you to unmute, but that's actually worked out perfect. I also just want to name that we'll transition to questions and answers from the group next. So go ahead and drop your questions in the chat, but we'll also bring some folks up on stage if you want, so you can ask some questions directly. Our intention was to hold a community roundtable at the end. We still will, but we're going to start that at 15 minutes past the hour, and our speakers will probably need to get back to their land and their farm and such. So I want to hold it open, but I want to prioritize questions from y'all, and thank you guys for being flexible with the run of show with us, all in the spirit of what's needed right now. So Michelle, please, to you.
Thanks. So the best way to support ShemeshFarms is to go to our website and ShemeshFarms.com and purchase salts all season long. We have really, really beautiful names. Shofar So Good, Karpas Diem, Pesach is coming up, Holat Kalav. It's getting hot in here. We have really kitschy, fun names that the farm fellows come up with these names at our business meetings. So that's one way. And then you can also, while you're on the website, you can donate. And if you're in the Los Angeles area, give us a call and come and visit us.
Right on, Michelle. Can attest, I have some of your salts from when I visited. I use them on radishes especially, and they are so amazing. So thank you for being a part of making those incredible salts. Bill,
we also sell and we're beekeepers, and we sell our very own Malibu raw honey as well as seed packets. So you'll find all of that on our website.
So beautiful. Thank you. And Bill, how can this community support Edible Judaism or Shalom Institute?
I would say what Michelle said. That's so much. That's really with ShemeshFarms. But I think if, for Shalom Institute, Michelle mentioned, unfortunately, our whole campus was destroyed. We have 200 acres in Malibu, and our farms were destroyed. And actually working right now over the last couple of years, and I know Becca is on Bodenstein, who's our Chief Sustainability Officer. She is on here. We've been working with Farmer D, who's actually helped create Coastal Roots Farm, and his team the last couple of years, because we have two. One is building the new site for ShemeshFarms. Also, prior to the fire, we had the Marla Bennett Israel Discovery Center and Garden, and Marla was a camper of mine when I was our camp director. We run an overnight JCC overnight camp on our site. She was unfortunately one of the victims of the Hebrew University bombing in 2002, and we created a garden in the shape of the map of Israel, with thousands of people coming through every year through it, and we are rebuilding that with the Farmer D's help. And some new innovations. So whatever support, if you're interested in supporting our rebuild and some of the, especially around the new ShemeshFarms site and our animal center and our equestrian center, as well as the Marla Bennett Israel Discovery Center and Garden. That's one of our goals. So, and that's shalominstitute.com is we are a 501c3.
Amazing. Thank you, Bill. Excited to be a part of that rebuild alongside your community. Shani, how about you?
So one of the best ways that you can support us is in helping to grow our community. So if you know someone who is Jewish and is interested in farming, currently farming, used to farm, send them over to our website, which I'm posting in the chat. And one of the other great ways to support us is also by donating. So we are a 501c3 nonprofit organization, and the support of donors, especially recurring monthly donors, really make our work possible. So if you are in a financial position to be able to do that, that would mean the absolute world to us. And I am also posting that link into the chat. And yeah, hope to see y'all at some Jewish Farmer Network programs soon.
Yes, amazing. Which most of those, Shani, it's open to if you're Jewish or if you're not Jewish, right? Yeah, gorgeous. Seeing nods. Sharon, how about you? How can we support Coastal Roots Farm?
Yeah, I think, just like everyone else, we have our website that we encourage you all to go to. Just put it in the chat where you can make a donation to the farm, or just look at different programs that we're doing and the values that are guiding all that we are doing here on the farm. Being also a 501c3, all the money goes right back into all of our operations, so that we can donate more food offsite, so that we can provide more programs and scholarships and suggested donation to the community that wants to be part of this of land-based Judaism. And if you are in the area, please come by. We have volunteer opportunities. We have lots of events going on. So we'd love to see you here on the farm. Make sure to introduce yourself to whoever is here and letting them know how you found out about the farm.
Yeah.
Thank you all. Yeah, what an honor to be in the know about how we can support you best. So if the spirit moves y'all after this call, check them out. There's so much more to learn and richness on your guys' site as far as resources and upcoming events. And just hearing deep inspiration coming through the chat. So this is the time. We are going to transition to Q&A. This is my favorite moment. We get to hear from you, the community. You have purposely not been muted. I'd love to just invite anyone. We have some incredible questions coming through that I think I'm going to really just read, actually, because I think that they're pretty succinct. So we have 20 minutes left. We'll pretty much finish out the next 15 with those Q&A. And I'm just sitting in a deep moment of like, wow, there's so much to talk about. I think we just lost Michelle, but hopefully she'll come back. All right, cool. So I'd love to ask this first question that came through the chat. Let me see who asked it. From Perry. Perry, this is a beautiful question. Perry's really curious about what methods or techniques are you using to build resilience into the land for farming as climate change impacts continue. And if I could sneak a little tag along onto this one, I had a really deep curiosity for someone to speak a little bit more on Shemitah, because you guys are in a Shemitah year. Okay, Shani, maybe you can take that one and kind of run with it, or whoever wants to. So I think it all relates, but please take it away. How are you guys working with the land, building resilience into it?
I think any of us can talk about Shemitah. I didn't mean to jump on it so quickly, but just a brief introduction. So we are in the Shemitah year. What is the Shemitah year? So as Jewish people, every 7 days we rest, and on the Shabbat, on the Sabbath, and every 7 years, you let the land rest. So this is a year of no tilling, and you take down your fences and everything becomes a commons. But the Shemitah year and the laws of Shemitah are not required outside of the land of Israel. So we're left with this question of what can we learn from this? How do we get to, instead of a have to, how do we get to incorporate this amazing piece of Jewish ancestral agricultural technology? How can we integrate that into our work? And so we get to choose to let pieces of our land rest. I think of Shemitah as this visionary method of crop rotation. And there's this book called Dirt, the Erosion of Civilization by David R. Montgomery, where he talks about the ways in the ancient world that most ancient civilizations were stewarding land in such a way that they were eroding their soils. And within like a certain period of time, I don't remember exactly what the time period was. Everyone was eroding their soils because of their agricultural methods, and they had to just move somewhere new. And then he identifies the Jewish people, along with some other folks, or the ancient Israelites, as one of the only civilizations that was stewarding the land in such a way that they could have stayed in the same place in perpetuity, because we were taking such good care of our soil. So I'm really inspired by the ideas of Shemitah. I know that it's like really hard, like, okay, I'm going to let my entire land rest for a whole 7 years. As a farmer, I'm going to lose all my customers, right? I'm going to like lose so much. And like, there are so many ways that we get to interpret this, right? We get to bring it up to like this moment of like, what it can that look like today? So there are farmers in our network who have divided their farms into 7 plots. And every year, a different slice of their farm gets to rest and lie fallow, which I think is really beautiful and like is like amazing in terms of creating resilient soils and resilient systems. And I will look at someone else.
So good. I'm going to maybe suggest and just run an audible in that to get to some more questions. We'll maybe have like one person add, and then if you guys are really called, we can connect afterwards on extra additions. So Shani, that was wide ranging and encompassing. And also I want to add something that I learned from that 20-minute video that I was mentioning that I know is on your site and we can share out further, but you spoke to the power and potential of living into Jewish and agricultural identities and practices, like how the core Jewish ethics supports a transformation away from industrial chemical-based agriculture towards local, small, regenerative, cooperative farms. And really, I think it's such a beautiful metaphor because if you're living from a certain value, it's difficult to tend to land, to be in relationship with land and do it with ethic and care if you are trying to farm at an industrial scale. So I can see that in each of your individual works, how deeply, closely connected you are to your communities. It's being lived out in essence by how you're showing up and, you know, being guided by your lineage and your culture. So just wanted to add that. It also came from you, but we have a really interesting question, kind of like multiple questions coming through around folks that want to get more involved and engaged locally. So I'd love to elevate these. Yeah, so how do you connect locally with other Jewish farmers? She is in Austin, for example, Oriane, he or she. And then also a similar question is coming in around, do you guys have suggestions for folks who are in rural, potentially very Christian areas with no other Jewish folks or farmers in sight? How can they get more involved in a personal way beyond potentially online interactions? So I'll let whoever wants to grab a hot mic on that one.
I think it's a good Shani question. I think she's the best at I'm going to defer to her. This is where she does so well. So
thank you, Rabbi Bill. Yes, so our organization was like born right at the beginning of the pandemic. So most of what we've done in terms of programming has been virtual. As we are moving through and out post-COVID, Bezrat Hashem, please God, we are hoping to be like launching more regional gatherings. But in the meantime, we have a Facebook group for Jewish farmers where if you post like, hey, I'm here, like I guarantee people will be like, oh my gosh, I'm your neighbor. Let's like have Shabbat dinner together. So I'm posting a link to that Facebook group. And then we are also launching a platform like the Farmers Footprint Mighty Networks platform. We're launching a Jewish Farmer Network platform that's like really similar, where you'll be able to like really easily find your neighbors and to be able to connect with other Jewish farmers. So that's what I got for you.
Nice. Sharon or Bill, I'm just audibling everywhere. Anything to add on ways that folks can connect with the work of Jewish agrarians in their space, whether or not they have Jewish agrarians near them. All good. If not, we can go on to the next question, but wanted to open it. Okay, feeling good. Amazing. Thank you, Shani. Okay, I want to ask a kind of a harder question because I think it's important to elevate these ones. This came through a community member, Melinda. So thank you, Melinda, for asking the tough ones in a good way. She's curious about if you have any ideas on ways to use agriculture to eliminate anti-Semitism, or at least to work with it. So. I'm seeing question marks. Yeah, is this Michelle?
Well, I think, oh, if you want to, Sharon, do you want to? I was going to add, I would just say that, by bringing, again, I work in the space of Jewish community farming and educational institutions. And I think as we bring in not only the Jewish community, but others into our space as a learning center, I think it really, in terms of learning about Judaism and connecting and the food justice and all the different work that we're doing, I think it's building bridges and it's building relationships and understanding of what we're doing. So I think it's really, I think that's the space in terms of dealing with anti-Semitism. I think in our worlds, I think that's the really understanding the Jewish connections and the healing properties and all the wonderful benefits of Jewish farming and gardens. And so.
Yes, and if I can add to that, the Jewish values that we put out in the community are really universal values. And so Jews and non-Jews alike that are coming to the farm, they see that, the ways that we are in relationship with the land is the same way we should be in relationship with the communities, with our, with those closest to us, and even with ourselves. And so whether that is giving, equitable access to food, making sure our employees are treated with highest dignity, our animals are treated in the most humane way, that sustainability is not just for us, but it's the dor, generation to generation. All of those things, all of those values that we use to guide all of our work are universal, and anyone can understand it, and to see that it's not a Jewish value necessarily, but it is a human value.
Thank you so much for those beautiful questions. I think at the core of that, yeah, it's how do we reduce the separation amongst each other and do it with intention and with love and appreciation for our differences and celebrate those and all that goodness. So thank you guys for answering that one powerfully. Okay, next question. This is a really fun one. So Leah is curious to learn more about kibbutz and how farming was a part of communal living, if that's something that anyone has knowledge base around. And potentially you could correct me on my pronunciation of kibbutz.
I can start that. So yeah, I used to live in Israel. We didn't live on a kibbutz. My sister does now live on a kibbutz. So it used to be that, these kibbutzim, like plural for kibbutz, so that's the correct pronunciation, Tori, were created to create these communities, that are working the land. And once again, they're in community, They were coming from Eastern Europe, perhaps, or other places into Israel and wanting to be connected once again back to the land, as Shani said, we're people of the land. And so in the kibbutz, people, it used to be, a socialized system where you couldn't leave the kibbutz once you were in it. And every job you had was helping back for the kibbutz to be able to be sustainable. And you actually went from job to job. And sometimes you got stuck, if there's something you really like if you really enjoyed being in the kitchen, or you really enjoyed working with the cows or in the children's room, those were the jobs that you had. However, most of the time it was a rotational system. And everybody was contributing to the success of that kibbutz, making sure that food was grown, or that laundry was done, or children were taken care of. was interesting is that people did not get paid for these jobs. They were, maybe given a small allowance, but there was like a chadar ochel, this dining room everybody ate at certain times of day. You knew that everybody was going to get a break at the same time. You go to the dining room and you get your food for free, and you have your housing for free, all as part of contributing to this kibbutz system. People did not own cars at the beginning. They couldn't leave. If you wanted to leave, you had to ask for permission. So it was a very closed community. And then once, people saw that they wanted to get out. They wanted to be able to travel to different parts of Israel without having to wait for a car or for permission for their vacation. Then the kibbutzim became more privatized, and now more of the kibbutzes in Israel are privatized. And so people still can choose to work at the kibbutz. They can choose to give back to the kibbutz, but mostly they're being used as these intentional communities where folks like my sister, they might have a plot of land as part of their rent that she's paying for the house that she's in, but she gets to grow her own food in this little small area. But they have people have cars now, and they have jobs outside of the kibbutz. They might send their children to schools outside the kibbutz. And so there was this really amazing intentional idea of people working the land and being together and creating this amazing community. And it evolved to a more modern sense of how do we still have an intentional community and feel the freedom to be outside of this area when we want to.
So beautiful, Sharon. That was very holistically explained. Thank you. I learned so much in that answer. And that also sounds fun. Sounds great to live and work with people. Wow, this time has just flown by. I'm sitting in such deep gratitude for everything that you guys have shared to this moment. It's really powerful and just in reverence for also how you guys originally, when I think I emailed all of you, you were like, yeah, we already know each other. We're already working together. We have regular meetings within this, coalition that you're a part of. So it's tricky. There's so many beautiful questions coming through around how are y'all thinking about, the 2023 Farm Bill? How do you find, hard to find seeds like Louisa herb? So people are still percolating and bubbling with tons more questions for y'all, but we are getting close to time. So if you guys have, further curiosity, want to learn more about these 4 organizations' incredible work, you can go ahead and again, use that Jewish Agriculture Week as a launch pad. Also, if you feel moved to be learning about other farmers' stories, we have plenty of other stories on the Farmers Footprint website. And if you want to support us to continue doing the storytelling work and being able to have platform to elevate incredible folks like this, you can also support us there. So small plug for us. We have plenty of other events coming up in the community to do more of this connection and elevate deep spaces and containers to continue linking. So to that spirit, in about 5 minutes, we will stick around and we'll take everyone off of these spotlighted bigger bubbles and we'll just be in circle. I'd love to hear from you guys what this conversation brought up for you. It's a joy to hear more about that. So one final question for y'all. And I think that Sharon, you're going to kick us off. It's a brief one and it's inspired by a billboard question that a podcaster of mine really likes to ask as a final question. So it's simple, like in a succinct way. Maybe it's a thread from your work or some nugget of truth that's come to you. Is there anything that you would like to share with the group today, or one final message that you'd like to imprint on them as they walk away from this session?
Right. Yes, I like that question. I mean, there's like so much that came into my mind. So I think the one thing I would love for everybody to walk away with is similar to what Shani said, in that, being a Jewish farmer should not be an oxymoron, right? That we are connected to the land. All of us are connected to the land, and that these values, these like ancient indigenous values that from Jewish wisdom or other cultures and other indigenous tribes that are really able to teach us about how to be in relationship to the land should inspire us to be thankful to the food that we're getting, and to inspire us to treat each other in the same way we would, or treat the land in the same way we would treat each other. We'll say that way. So we want to make sure that we're giving back, and we are in relationship with the land, just like we are with those that we love most.
So potent, Sharon. Thank you. And Michelle, how about yourself? I can repeat it if you'd like. Is there anything you'd like to share with the group? One final message that you'd like to imprint upon everyone as they close their laptops and walk back out into the grass or the world, wherever they are?
Yeah, so I think, it's very common for us to gain knowledge through book, but there's something about working with the land that we don't have to start with the book. We can start with our hands and experiencing the soil. And you can go in without a lot of knowledge and come out with so much knowledge and Jewish wisdom by just putting your hands in the soil.
Thank you, Michelle. Yeah, that's universal. Heck yeah. Bill, how about yourself?
I'm going to play off of what Sharon and Michelle said, is that my hope is that farming, especially in the Jewish community, but just in general in gardens, and becomes a norm. It should be a norm, should not be an anomaly. It should just be part and parcel of who we are and what we do. And what we do is in communal gatherings. And then the soil, I do believe that there is tremendous therapeutic value, from grounding to being, just to, it changes ourselves. And I think so many people are alienated from that, like touching soil, being with soil. And if more people are able to do it, I think we can definitely make the world a better place. And Tikkun Olam is so much part of Judaism in terms of it's fixing the world or healing the world. And so I think digital tools so impressive. Soil is one of the,
if you have diabetes, it's important.
Sorry about that. Bill, can you unmute? Thank you.
I was going to say that soil is so much part of healing our world. It's so much part of that. So that's what I would like to share.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. And it's a vehicle too, right? Like healing ourselves, healing the soil, doing it together. Shani, please take us home.
So I have two things. One is I want to empower everyone here to reach back and connect with your own ancestral agrarian traditions. Like, who were your ancestors? Like, what was their relationship to land? And like, find ways to like connect with that. I think is like a big thing for me. And then I think if there's like one thing, I think that is like the like Jewish offering of like healing to the world, like the gift that the Jewish people were given, that I love to share, is the gift of sacred cycles of work and rest, and the interplay of like boundaries, which gvura, like boundaries, and loving kindness towards ourselves. So the ways that like our boundaries around rest enable us to be more kind to ourselves, especially as farmers, and the way that that rest rejuvenates us and allows us to be, to like show up to the work in like a healing way, right? That like we've taken care of ourselves and now we're like in a mind heart space that we're able to like take care of the earth and take care of our communities. So I just want to like bless everyone that we should find our own boundaries around rest.
Yes, rest is revolutionary. It's radical, especially in today's world. So yeah, I think in some ways all of your answers on the billboard moment tied together, right? So many beautiful threads of soil and community and rest and cycle and rhythm and tradition. I feel at loss of words. I am just grateful. Thank you, the four of you, for sharing your work and your wisdom. Thank you to everyone who has showed up today and listened and asked and gotten curious and potentially inspired. To our wonderful speakers, deep gratitude. If y'all need to jet, please honor and respect your time. Thank you for the few extra minutes. And if you want to stick around and have a deeper conversation with some of our community, please feel free. Ours is yours. So I'm going to go ahead and take everyone off spotlight mode. Everyone has the opportunity to unmute. So thanks, Waves. Thank you guys if you got a jet. And normalizing for everyone else, if you have to jump, feel free. The rest of this will be recorded. So if you want to experience it afterwards, we'll send out the replay. So yeah, thank you guys. And for everyone else, let's stick around. I'm so curious to hear what this brought up for you. Okay.
Tori?
Yes, Derek.
You know
I
I
knew it
have
was your
something to
voice.
say. You know, hey,
I need
great
to take
conversation.
myself
I
off.
was late to the party due to
Okay.
a conflict, but thank you all for sharing. One memory for me, I grew up in Brooklyn, New York. And so we have very diverse yet separate communities we can go in and out of. And back in the 90s, maybe late 80s, 90s, they used to have an expo at maybe the Jacob Javits and other places in Manhattan. And do you know that I ran upon two Hasidic Jews who were eating organic food, and it blew my mind because I said, "Oh my goodness!" I said, "What are you doing?" And they said, "I eat healthy too." They actually told me I eat healthy too, and it's not everyone, but they actually share with me a lot of information about what you all talked about, and in terms of the land. And so to Sharon, right, to Sharon Oren, when the land does not discriminate, the land does not say things to you, you can't plant here because of a skin. So when you understand that, and these labels that we construct for various reasons, the land never says no. It's always a yes. And so when you understand that we and our physical structures come from the land, so all of a sudden it blows my mind and say, you don't have to be this way. We choose to be this way. So thank you for this forum, Tori, Performance Footprint, and that's what came up to me, and it shattered the boundaries that I put up due to my upbringing. That there's so much more out here than what we've been told. So that was on my journey. So thank you and shalom, and continue on, Tori.
Thank you, Derek. So grounding to me, the depth of your experience from years past, like time folding back on itself to today. That's so cool. Wow. I don't have a plan for this, y'all, but I mean, I'll ask a starter question. We do keep it kind of casual. So I'd say, first of all, if you guys are still listening in, so beautiful to see your face. So if you do feel brave, we don't care if it's messy hair you're eating, feel free to jump on camera. No pressure if you're just listening today. But yeah, I think I'm curious where other people are curious. What did this bring up for you? What did it spark? Yeah, and if anyone feels called to speak to literally anything, it's just an open forum. The space is for you. Rosemary, please jump in.
No, I feel very inspired to get in touch with my other Jewish communities here, because our little community, we don't have our own land, and yet there is an interest in this. There's been an interest in this. So I'm like, well, what have I got to lose? So I'm just going to go around, and because I know there are some wealthier communities out there that might have their own land, and maybe we can just come together, do something together. It doesn't just have to be our little shoal. So I'm really excited about it.
What does that look like to you, Rosemary? Or Shani, ask a question. I'm curious if you need access to land or if you're looking to connect with other people. Shani, jump in too.
I'm sorry, you're talking to me?
Yeah.
Went out there for a little bit. what does it look like? I don't know what it's going to look at. I feel like I need to go and talk to these people first and see who's interested and what direction we can go in. I was excited. Somebody had mentioned something about hydroponics, about the grow towers. We're really limited here in Florida in the summer, but the grow towers might be a way to get started, you know, because of all the rains and everything. We could actually do the grow towers under shade cloth, I believe. It gets so hot here. So, and we're still trying to figure out what grows well in the summer here for us, besides the regular tropical fruits. It's hard to find the greens that people want. So yeah, I'm excited now to go do some research.
I'd like to add
Thank
on.
you so much. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I'm so grateful.
I'd like to add on to Rosemary's. I think one thing that's really beautiful is looking. There's a strong Jewish community here in Houston, and I think one thing that I need to do a better job of when working on an urban farm that I work at currently is looking at what types of cultural foods can I start to plant, just so that I can either bring seeds to that community and do like seed sovereignty, or even start growing things and giving that to the Jewish community in my area. So that's one thing that I'm going to start to dig into more.
That's beautiful. Can I add one more thing? One of the things that I've been reading right now is, I don't know if you're familiar, but in terms of the teachings from the Torah, there's a rabbi who's written something called the Eco Bible. So he's taken each one of the parshas and he's shown you, he points it out. So it's the Eco Bible. I'll put the name of it in the chat. But it's just been awesome. To every time before we talk about a parsha now, I go through this and I'm reading it, and it does. Even though I don't have my hands in the dirt, just to read about these plants and the influence that they've had, or the land, the influence it's had, and their traditions, it just, again, my mind just goes whoosh. It's just so much. So I'm just, yeah, really enjoying it. Don't know if anybody else is familiar with that, but I love it.
Thanks, Rosemary. Yeah, all of the resources, very welcome. I actually forgot to mention that tomorrow we're going to post on Instagram a bunch of resources. So if you all have any, we can try and sneak them in there and get them out to others. So drop them in the chat if you got them. Oh, Shani, thank you so much. This is great. Yeah, I'm curious to hear from others. Like, what did this spark for you? Duran, I see you. Yeah, just jump in. Also, this super casual. Feel free to just come off mute and start riffing.
Yeah, I just popped off mute. Sorry, I'm not on video. I have a question regarding the Jewish tradition aspect of this, and I'm just curious. And I think somebody said this, but it may have just zoomed past me, and I didn't pick up on it. Is how big of a role does tillage play, and also, you know, tillage using machinery? Is that, I don't know if there's anybody left on the call that can really answer my question. But I was just so curious that I'm assuming not a very big role, because if they were traditionally going to be able to stay forever and farm forever, then it would have to be a small role. Because you can't till the land and farm it forever. That's what I'm learning. Yeah, you gotta treat that soil really, really delicately. So
that's what I've learned too.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I will ask my question on the next one. The next.
I know Shani just jumped off, and I think she would have been a great resource for that. But it's good to it's good to follow up maybe with either her or Coastal Roots. But I could conjecture a bit. I mean, I think I can't speak to tillage directly, but I think a practice that they spoke to a bit within the Shemitah year and that deep rest for the land. I think definitely no tilling during that year by design. And yeah, that circular kind of allowing things to, and as jump in, I'm kind of just speaking after not much knowledge, but trying to draw some sort of thing that I do know. So yeah, please.
No, you're good. You're good. I'd say one thing that a lot of people within the agriculture community with regards to tilling is that you're breaking up the soil aggregates. So like it's
Yep.
more like a compact community of soil microbes. And so when you break that up or you expose it to a lot of oxygen, it's not the environment that they were typically in. So now you're creating a new environment that the soil microbes haven't been adjusted to. So some of them may die off, some of them maybe there's going to be like an off balance of more of the bad microbes versus the good microbes. So with tilling over time, you can also lead to a lot more of erosion depending on how the water patterns are, the wind is. So it's very particular to your environment and where you're farming. And it can be beneficial and useful in certain periods and certain times. But I'd say for the most part, the way that we are tilling today on a larger scale, conventional agriculture has been shown to be more detrimental long term. But yeah, I hope that gives you a little bit of direction. Yeah.
And I've also learned too through Shabbat, the Shabbat experience of, slowing down and just looking and observing your land. The land is different wherever you go. And so there may be some land, like if you're trying to farm in heavy clay soil, you will have to till to get some gypsum in there and some other soil particles in there to create better drainage if you're going to be starting a garden. But there again, it all depends on your observations of the soil and you asking the questions and not trying to have this blanket answer for everything.
If I could add on that, I in preparation just to be able to get to know some of the foundational guiding, cultural, ritual, these things. Shani sent this beautiful video that she was a part of as like a conference, I'm pretty sure. And it's speaking to, I'll share it with y'all, but it's speaking to what you're talking about, Rosemary. And I just want to like maybe share some of the notes that I took from it in speaking about Shemitah and speaking about that rest. And you use the word observation, Rosemary, and that's what made me think of it. So yeah, just speaking to the potency of letting the land rest. And like you were saying, Inez, like how wildly regenerative that is for the soil and microbial communities and everyone who lives in the soil. But also on an interactive level, it does create that moment of intentional observation of our land, right? Like you can see where the low points are, you can see where the fertile points are, because we're not pushing and imposing our version of the land, like our interpretation of what it should be growing, how quickly it should do it. Not doing that to the land, but rather for a year, like really sitting back and, asking, how can I sit at the feet of the earth as my greatest teacher? And how can I learn how to farm this land, not from books, but from the wisdom of the land itself and by like really listening to it. So just how potent that was to me, Shani's words speaking about how to be in relationship with land that is punctuated by these moments of deep rest and is really grounded in deep care and respect for it. So just passing that along to y'all if that feels useful.
Beautiful.
I have a question. I was thinking about when you do leave the land fallow, do they do anything like cover it with, like nutritive, not fertilizer, but the organic material and stuff to make sure that like a lot of weeds just don't grow and suck up the nutrients in the soil?
I could speak to at least Coastal Roots. I've taken a few farm tours with them, and because I actually live just 10 minutes from them. So as far as like, I'll speak to one part and then maybe I might have you repeat the question because maybe some other folks can answer further, but they actually are experimenting with tarping. So in between, they have a whole cycle where they bring the chickens out and they do a cover crop round and then they chop and drop. I'm going to get the order wrong, but these are all things they do. And I'm not a farmer, so I don't know the order, but they're cover cropping, they're chop and dropping to let that kind of like regenerate and create more fertility and like food for the microbial communities. And then I think maybe before they do that, they tarp it so that it doesn't allow light to reach the soil. And when they take that off, everything there is, resting and the soil is super hot and the weed seeds didn't get the sunlight, so they're not growing any further. And then I forgot the order. If then they cover crop and then they bring in the chickens and all the things. But yeah, there's definitely aspects of experimentation and, modernity, right? Like millennia ago, they didn't have plastic tarps. I'm sure we're always looking for maybe things that aren't plastic that we can be utilizing in agriculture, just to be in the biosphere and kind to that. But that's what I know. Does anyone else know anything? Bonnie, can you maybe repeat the question?
Let's see. If this, what they may do to the fallow land to keep it from getting sucked up with the nutrients by weeds and stuff, to make sure that it is constantly during that time, it's still getting nutrients to, you know, to, I don't know, does that make sense? Yeah. So I think that's, I think everybody understands, do you? But that was a great answer. Thank you so much.
Able to add to that. I did post a resource for you, Bonnie, that's in the chat. Dr. Alan Williams has worked with farmers footprints in the past, and he specializes on how can we transform fallow land into being productive land, focusing on soil health. And so within his ideology, he has like a 6-3-4, like different key points. And one of the things he does talk about is within cover cropping is using legumes, herbs, and grasses that are native to your area. And all three of those plants will regenerate that land over time because they'll be creating biological hotspots. So areas that will bring in more of those soil microbes, and it'll just naturally spread. So from that standpoint, I'd say it's best to have some type of 6 to 8 different species of cover crops, just to like keep that land resting. And at the same time, the legumes are typically nitrogen fixing bacteria, so they'll bring in a lot more nutrients back into the soil. I know that's a lot, and I probably used a lot of like acronyms or like scientific terms. So I hope that that resource in the chat is able to guide you in the right direction.
Sure, thanks. And that will be included with the Instagram list that you have for the resources. I'm sorry, I missed like a half an hour of this. I came in late. So
No worries, Bonnie. We're glad you made it. I will post that resource in all the chats. All of the links that were mentioned in the chat will post in the replay in the community event comments. So keep an eye out for that. We created some resources specifically related to Jewish agriculture that we were going to share out on Instagram. So I'm going to chat with Leah because she's the wizard in all of that stuff to see if maybe there's some time to sneak in some extras. But definitely the place they will live is within the Mighty Networks community in the event. And I'll share that with you right now. So
thank you so much. And
yeah.
I just want to mention shortly, I live in San Francisco and I'm a member of Argonne Community Garden. We have like lots of community gardens, and it's just wonderful, you know, that you're doing this. So thank you.
Bonnie, how's that community garden? Is it tied to any like certain denomination or group, or it's just true community gardening and you enjoy kind of getting your hands in the soil there?
Yeah, just whoever wants to join in San Francisco, preferably in our neighborhood area. But, yeah. So
wow.
We have about 100 people.
Oh my gosh, how special. What a community. That's fantastic.
Yeah. But thank you again.
Yeah, thanks for being here. Thank you all for being here. I mean, floor's still open, folks. What questions you got? What are you bringing?
I just had one quick thing to add. I think this is more for Rosemary. When we were talking about hydroponics, and I know some people are really excited about it. And for me personally, I have kind of done a 180 on hydroponics just after listening to the folks from Real Organics. The hydroponic produce loses so much because the roots are not connected to that soil food web. And so I'm obviously in some instances, it's better to have some food than no food, of course. And you can put a little bit of nutrition on those roots, you know, to help them out, and they will produce for you. But yeah, hydroponics has become quite controversial. So you'll probably come across that in your research. And I would have loved to have spoken to the woman who was doing that out in Malibu just to see what her experience was. But yeah, you'll read about that.
Good to know. Thank you.
Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, Darren, I can add to that. And feel free to reach out to ShemeshFarms. They will be able to kind of tee you up. I've had a chance to visit. We did actually a volunteer day with Farmers Footprint. So we had like 15 people out and working with the farm fellows and on site. It was so special. And we were actually harvesting marjoram and lemon balm and rosemary from their vertical garden. So they're prolific. I have some like curiosities also around the hydroponic piece. I think it's, to me, like a really beautiful and sometimes more water conservational practice, especially in urban areas. So just providing access to food, I think it can be a really amazing tool in a toolbox. And then also, Duran, to your point, and I think some of the soil that the Real Organic Project stands upon is, just soil is such, it's nature's technology, right? Like, it's so deeply beautiful, the microbial communities that live in soil. In hydroponics, you're growing fully in water. So just the depth of nutritional density of food that can potentially come from being grown in soil, and all the minerals and nutrients and phytochemicals and all the things that have the potential to get into the root body of those plants that then we eat, is, I think, part of the reason why they're curious around the value of soil, of creating healthy soils that are not imbued with toxicities or chemicals, and what that brings to us as far as nourishment, and as far as the ecosystem pieces too. So I see both. To me, it's very both and. Each has its own place, especially in today's world where so much of our population is centered in urban spaces. Right on. Well, if it feels like a natural ending, just thank you guys so much for coming. This was really, really special to have y'all here. And if you are interested in jumping into any future events, we host them in the community. I'll drop those events for you here. You can look for the ones that have the Farmers Footprint logo. I felt like this was a really fun one. So if you guys ever had feedback or suggestions, more of this, less of that, the space is for you, and we're all ears for it. So Inez and I, who just had to jump off, Inez is a community strategist here in the community as well. We're just here in service, totally leading from a place of what you guys want and need and desire. So thank you guys so much for lending your voice, your attention. What a beautiful gift it was to share some time together today. And back to the wild. Enjoy the rest of your Thursday or Friday, depending on where you are in the world. And cheers. Thank you guys. Hope to see you soon.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Totally. Be well.